Maximize cloud efficiency with Doit, the trusted partner in multi-cloud management for thousands of companies worldwide. Visit doit.com. That's DOIT.com. Doit, your cloud simplified.
A little bit of a different episode because it's the last episode. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, that will be a one of a kind last episode for the Kubernetes Unpacked podcast.
So for one last time, we'll do my name is Michael Levan.
And my name is Kristina Devochko.
And today we are going to be talking about wrapping up the Kubernetes Unpacked podcast. Yes, coming to an end. Yeah. We're over 2 years in, which is crazy. This is the 54th episode, so we've had over 50 episodes, which is wild. And a little bit of reflection in terms of what we've talked about. We've kind of talked about everything, right? More or less.
Yeah, I mean, you started it first by yourself and have been talking about a bunch of things for some time before I joined you, Michael. It feels a little bit surreal to finish it up and reflect on the podcast, but I think that we have covered many relevant topics around Kubernetes and cloud native and the broad Kubernetes ecosystem, and we have definitely not covered it all, and it's continuously evolving, but I feel like the topics that have been discussed here, both between me and you and our guests, also touching upon different areas as well, from security to resource efficiency and sustainability to the trends to conferences like KubeCon and Cloud Native Con. So it's been quite a lot of content, and many of it is still relevant, even looking at the content from 2 years ago, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of the content aged quite well. I'm trying to kind of go back and think everything that we talked about. I don't think any of it is not usable. I think it's still all very relevant. I think it's all still very usable.
Yeah, I mean, I have a few folks from the community who told me recently, like just a few weeks ago, that they've started listening to the podcast from the first episode up, and there was a lot of useful and relevant content still. So that is, to me, sounds like a very good feedback on that. That content is still very valid despite the active development and evolvement in the Kubernetes space. So it's not always like that you create a piece of content and it's outdated like a few months later. So I think that's a great thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think one of the biggest reasons is we stuck to the underlying piece of it. You know, we didn't really do episodes on here's what's new with the latest Kubernetes release. We didn't really do that. We did all of the things that will always be relevant, in the Kubernetes realm. When we've talked about all the projects from Cilium to all the open source projects to security to networking to certifications and everything in between.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to the release notes and highlighting every release, for example, or going through all the sessions from a KubeCon and Cloud Native Con event in detail, I think that there is a lot of content about that, and you can easily read about it yourself. But I think it's much more interesting to discuss the engineer-focused reflections, often from our own experience and from the guests' experience as well. So I do believe that this is the real life experience is what brings a lot of value for others who may need to implement something similar or need to adopt this specific tool, and kind of learning from another engineer's experience is super valuable.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. 100%. I think there's a lot of content out there. It's all really great stuff. With this podcast, we never wanted it to be markety or salesy. We never wanted it to be here's the latest news in this. We didn't go in that direction. We really went in the direction of putting the engineers first, putting their education first, and ultimately giving them the ability to learn in their career. It was never about anything else.
I feel like we've managed that.
Yeah.
I feel like we've managed to have it pretty technical and experience-based, and we had really a lot of great guests here on this podcast sharing their diverse experience, and I think that it has been a big pleasure.
Yep.
I think maybe it makes sense in this episode to share some of our recommendations, or maybe leave our listeners with something that maybe can help them or motivate them in terms of working with Kubernetes and cloud native space? Like, what kind of message would you want to share with our listeners today?
One of the biggest things that I will say is a lot of people come to me for my content. A lot of people follow on LinkedIn. A lot of people see the content that I'm pushing out as very engineering focused, very educational versus buzzy. That's why I've been able to build myself around this whole Kubernetes thing and platform engineering as a brand. And the reason why is because I look at things a lot different than the majority of people. When I am working on something Kubernetes related or something platform engineering related, I'm not looking for the easy way out. I'm not looking to just do it a couple hours and say, oh, I know it. You know, everything that I touch in this realm, I'm hitting it 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. And that might not be computer time. That might be me sitting on the couch reading a book. That may be me sitting and reflecting on a conversation that I had around Kubernetes. That may be me researching new conferences to go to and speak at. Whatever the case may be, I am constantly on and constantly going from a mindset perspective. And that's the reason why, like, when everybody reaches out to me and says, oh, your content's different. Oh, the stuff that you put out is different. Yeah, because I'm thinking about it way differently than the majority of people are. So my advice, my recommendation, think about it differently. Don't look for the easy way out. Don't expect to read something for an hour and say, "Ooh, I know all the answers now." No, no, no. This is real engineering, and real engineering requires a lifetime to get 60% of the way through, right? You're never going to master everything. You're never going to become an expert and know everything and never have to learn again. If you want to do real engineering and you want to put real work in, it's just a constant effort almost daily from you. Do you have to do it? No. Do you want to be different than everybody else? If the answer is yes, then go ahead and do it. That's I don't know. My
TED Talk.
opinion my opinions are always very unpopular.
I don't know why you think that. I think that was a great TED Talk right now. So it was a very important message. I mean, I don't know who it couldn't inspire right now. So I liked it. And I
Thank you.
think, like, to maybe add upon what you said, is also consistency is the key. I think, like, even if you read or like put half an hour, 20 minutes in your busy every day, if you put 20 minutes every day times 365 days, it can be a lot of minutes in the end that you can dedicate to the content. And I can tell from my experience that this works because I've been really struggling with getting to read through books. I've tried different strategies, like I want to, but then I put very high goals for myself, like dedicating 1 hour every day to read, or I will read through this 1 to 2 chapters every day, or I will try to read 2-3 books simultaneously, and nothing worked. So I would drop out, and then there is no progress, and I feel bad about it because I don't get to develop and learn as much as I wanted to, because my mind doesn't feel like it can handle all this amount of work and pressure I need to do every day with this goal I set for myself. So this year I tried something different. I did, okay, I will vary the time a little bit. I'll see approximately 15 to 20 minutes every day. If I'm up for it, I can read longer, but 15 minutes to 20 minutes I can try to read. It's not a lot, and that is like enough for my mind to process. And that's quite insane. I mean, like, since the beginning of the year, I read 20 books already. Wow. And that is basically just before bed, just lying there. Okay, my iPad normally tells me like 15 to 20 minutes for this chapter. I think, yeah, that fits into my time schedule. If it says like 40 to 50 minutes, I cut the chapter in two. Like, today I read half and tomorrow I read half. And I mean, that's insane. You have, like, sometimes you use a week or up to 2 weeks for a book, and you get at least 2 books a month read. And that really worked with a low effort for my mind to be able to process and actually be motivated. So this is like maybe a tip I could give in terms of like keeping it consistent, because it can seem difficult at times to combine your full-time work and your family with, you know, finding the time for something else like competence development or community involvement. This can be one way to try to dedicate even a little bit every
Mhm.
day in a consistent manner would help.
Let's take a quick sponsor break. Maximize cloud efficiency with Doit, the trusted partner in multi-cloud management for thousands of companies worldwide. Doit's innovative tools, expert insights, and smart technology make optimization simple. Elevate your cloud strategy and simplify your cloud spend. Visit doit.com. That's DOIT.com. Doit, your cloud simplified. And now back to the show.
And I think, it's ironic, right? We could do this live on the podcast. Let's see how much time we all got, right? So we got 24 hours in a day. The average adult needs to sleep 6 to 7 hours. But you know what? Let's be generous and say 8. The average adult is maybe working 8 hours a day. Nobody's actually working those 8 hours a day because we're doing things like lunch and taking breaks
Secret.
and looking at our phones, right? But again, let's be generous and say 8, right? Now, let's say you have to drive home. Now, a lot of people are working from home, right? But let's say you have a commute, right? We'll even minus out an hour. And then let's say, you usually go to bed at 9. Maybe you're spending 2 hours with your family per night, hanging out, eating, doing whatever, right? Usually I would say the typical is around 2 hours, but let's be even more generous and say 3. That leaves you with 4 hours after everything, after your sleep, after your work, after your family, after your drive, everything, 4 hours. If you can't take 20 minutes out of that to do what you need to do to progress yourself, then every podcast in the world isn't going to be able to help you, right? And I'm going through that exercise to say, like, we got a lot of time in the day, and my timing that I was just doing was incredibly generous, because I bet you actually probably have 8 hours in total, not even 4 per day, that you can do stuff, maybe 6 to 7 on typical, right? So even if you dedicate an hour, you're still looking at 4 to 5 hours. You can do whatever you want. You want to doom scroll for 5 hours straight? I don't recommend it, but if that's what you want to do, you go for it. You could still do that and still have an hour a day for your studies and to progress yourself. So I think that your advice is spot on.
Yeah, and I think even like commute, there are the small hacks that you could use as an opportunity to learn, like put a podcast in your ear while you are just sitting there on public transport or driving a car or whatever, or read something on your phone, read a book or watch a video, or, there are opportunities to use some small hacks like that as well. Or maybe if you want to like combine pleasure and learning, you could also for example, during summer, sit outside in your garden and read, or go do gardening stuff and have a podcast in your ear. That is also an opportunity. Or for those of us who struggle with concentration like I do when watching videos, I can't just sit and watch a video because I get really restless. So I combine that with other things like drawing, for example. So I can draw and still listen and switch my eyesight to see the diagrams and stuff and the demos. And then I kind of get, a little bit of both, learning at the same time, holding the focus, and also doing something that relaxes me, like drawing, and therefore handling the whole session. So there are ways that can help you dedicate time in your life for that. And maybe the important thing here is consistency and motivation and what you want to get out of it.
Yeah, makes sense. Couldn't have said it better myself.
So that ended up being an inspirational wrap-up episode.
That's what we do.
Keep learning, folks. That is our message. Keep pushing, keep learning.
Exactly. All right. So before we wrap up, a couple of things. Number one, this is not the last time you will hear from Christina and I, aside from the million other things we do. We are also cooking up something. I've posted it on my LinkedIn the week of whenever this episode comes out. But the week of May 2nd, I posted something out. We're going to be posting more about it. So more to come on this. Would like to thank Packet Pushers for a couple of years of awesome work together. Definitely fun, definitely memorable, great time overall. And thank you, everybody, for listening to us ramble for 2 years.
Yeah, that's a great message. I think, thanks to Packet Pushers and thanks to Michael being a great co-host with me and also letting me be your co-host.
Mhm.
And we don't say goodbye to each other. So you'll hear more from us as a single unit. How do you even formulate that? But you got us. You got
Yeah.
us. And thanks to all our listeners, like being dedicated and listening consistently to every episode, spreading the words about it, sharing feedback. And as Michael mentioned, we will keep doing the engineer focused content in different formats. So we are not saying goodbye. So stay tuned and we'll keep talking about all things Kubernetes, engineering, cloud native, you name it. So thank you for being with us on this Kubernetes Unpacked podcast journey.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.